Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Weather Command Center here in Southwest Ohio. Yeah, Cat, I seen them cheaper, but they're just circuit boards with a little wire for an antenna, and you have to supply the power to them, which means you got to try to wire off your battery, take the battery apart, and wire, and it's forget it. I'm not doing that route. Um, I don't know. I haven't been messing with that too much. Idalia has kept me busy. Oh my God. I was up all night tracking this thing, and it did make landfall as a Cat 4 hurricane and immediately just started falling apart. Well, I take that back. It did not make landfall as Cat 4. Right before landfall, it was a Cat 4. But it started going through an eye wall replacement at the last minute, and it didn't have quite of a chance to recover. It was almost, and I'll show you a little video that a screen grab that I did of GR Earth, and it was almost there, but it was too late. It was too late. So it was just under a Cat 4. It doesn't make any difference. It was so damn strong that nobody would have noticed. I was a little off on my track forecast, and I'll show you why a little bit. But what happened was at 2 o'clock in the morning when it jumped up to Cat 4, it did a wobble. And it turned a little bit to the northeast, and then turn back northeast. So yeah, South Carolina, North Carolina is getting hammered right now. Let's go over to the main screen and I'll show you a radar loop here. And there's actually been a confirmed tornado on this. There you see the pink box that'll show up here. It was a confirmed touchdown, but it didn't last long. If you look real close at this, you could tell where the center is. It's right in that area. That's where the center of rotation's at right now. So it's getting ready to move off the coast, but it's still that wrap around is bringing these outer bands in. You can see them all the way up. There's even been some rain and stuff up here by Virginia Beach, some storms up there. A lot of onshore flow. There's still storm surge happening right now. I tried to find a camera in Charleston, South Carolina, because I know that floods real easy, but I could not find a good camera. I only found one, and it didn't show much to show you guys. So that's what's happening right now. Now I'll stop this, and I want to bring up. Let's go back in time here to look at where that Tor was, right there. And I want to go back just a little bit further. And you can see it was one of the outer bands that was coming on shore. And there's actually a couple areas circulation. Right there's one, and right there's another. Let me step this ahead. And this is the one right there close to Cedar Lake, south of Wilmington. And she's ramped up pretty tight. And that's when it went to R, which right before it went to R, I looked at this. Hey, Mark. And you can see this dropout on correlation coefficient right there. That's when it touched down, was right there. And this other one up here got elongated rotation in it. But yeah, this thing is ramped up tight right there. That's what we look for. And on CC, really good dropout. It's fairly small, but that's how we know that it actually touched down and picked up some debris. Correlation coefficient, if you don't know, looks for objects that aren't round, like hail, rain. And so it touched down somewhere over here west northwest of Cedar Lake. That's North Carolina. That's the only Tor R that I've seen since I've been awake. There's been multiple tornado warnings. There was all night as well, even way down into Florida as I watched this thing overnight. Now, let's get to what's happening right now over here on Monitor 6. And Franklin, it's still chugging along out there. It's only 105 mile per hour Cat 2. It's been steadily weakening, and it's moving northeast, 13 miles per hour. Pressure steadily going up, 961 now. Now, here's Idalia. As of the 5 o'clock update, they dropped this from a tornado to a tropical storm. I believe it was a 5 o'clock update, or maybe the one before that. You can see it's slowing down in wind speed intensity. It's 65 mile per hour wind. It's still a tropical storm. 985 millibar. Now, when this thing went Cat 4 early this morning before landfall, the millibars was 940. But circling back into Florida, that is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I looked at the long-range models. If you're looking at the GFS ensembles, yeah, some of their ensembles are screwed up. Yesterday, when I ran the GFS model on this, it did, or actually last night, it did have it spinning back around into Florida. None of the other models were showing that. It's going to come out here. It's moving northeast at 21 mile per hour, but it is getting ready to come off of land. We'll take a look at the latest track on this. And it's actually, the center of it's a little bit closer to the shoreline. But it's going to stay a tropical storm. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, 60 mile per hour winds. And then she's definitely going to go off over the waters. Now, is it going to intensify? It's not looking like it. 60 mile per hour winds here at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And when we look at the next one, 50 mile per hour winds at 2 o'clock in the morning. On the 1st. So it's steadily going to be getting weaker, and here is the track for it. It's going to stay out to sea and kind of meander around out there. At the final point, which is on the 4th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's still a 50 mile per hour tropical storm. So some of the model runs did kind of show it curling back up towards Halifax, but it would totally just fall apart by the time it got there, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But basically, there's going to be a little bit of a high pressure here and another high pressure sitting back up here, and it's just going to keep shoving it out. The high pressure that's going to be up around in here might try to bring it back up towards Halifax, Nova Scotia, but I really don't see that happen. So what happened to it early this morning? Let's see here. Let me find the right one. Here we go. Good old Zoom Earth. So let's start from the beginning. Some of the meteorologists, like Fox News, said this thing came from Africa and came across. No, it did not. I've been watching this thing for days. It actually was a wave that started over here in the East Pacific, and there's a Central American gyre that's starting to happen down here that normally would be in October, and no, it's not going to meet up with any other tropical systems. They're going to stay apart. They're going to fall apart anyway. But anyway, the Central American gyre brought it across, which is kind of odd for this time of year. Usually it's October. But good old Idalia, she started down here, just a weak thing, 50 mile per hour. It was just a disturbance at this point. Then she came up to Cancun and decided she wanted to have a party. Look at her. There's the 26th at 2 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock on the 26th. And that's all right, Southpaw. We're just getting started here. And so she started to hang out around Cancun and had a little party happening up there, right? It just wasn't a whole lot happening. And it's like, what the hell? I'm not ready to turn into a really strong storm, so I'm going to get drunk. And look what she did. She got drunk, all right, and she came down here, and then she wobbled around, and then she came down here, and then she started to sober up. Hope you like my analogy. And then she got up here just off the tip of Cuba. And she kind of sat there as a tropical storm, 70 mile per hour. And then all of a sudden, she got up here. This was the 29th. And early yesterday, 2 o'clock in the morning, she turned into a Cat 1. And 75 mile per hour winds, and then she had nothing to hold her back. She was all sobered up and coming across all this fuel and these really deep warm waters, and she came on up. Now this doesn't show you all the little wobbles, but here's the one at 2 o'clock in the morning. They actually come over here to the studio a minute. They actually was flying hurricane hunters all night long into this thing. One who'd spent a couple hours out there. Matter of fact, it was a C-130 Air Force reserve that found the higher winds. And then a teal went through it after the C-130 went back home. A teal came out and went through it. And it actually seen at flight level, which was up about, I think, somewhere around 8,000 feet at the time, found 142 mile per hour winds up at flight level. So that's when they turned around and decided to make a Cat 3 hurricane. But it slowed down. Remember, I said there was a possibility this thing could slow down, and that would affect it. The one thing I failed to mention, and this is my fault, was a lot of times, especially here in the Gulf, when they slow down, they change direction. I do believe, and this is my personal opinion, come back over to the studio a minute. So this thing's turning counterclockwise, right? And all of a sudden it slows down. It don't have that forward speed to keep going north, which at that point it had been going north all day long and steadily speeding up. They got it up to 18 mile per hour, and then at 2 o'clock in the morning, it only dropped 3 mile per hour, but that was enough to affect its direction. I think when it slowed down, that centrifugal counterclockwise motion made it turn clockwise, and it turned northeast for a little bit. And this does not show you the actual other wobbles in here. I wished it did. They're just going from time period to time period and drawing a straight line. But it actually, what it did, and I'll pause this, it made this right turn like this. And then she turned back northeast. Now, my target forecast, if it would have kept going north, and all the models were showing this, south of Tallahassee up here, about right in that area is St. Mark's. And that's where I thought it was going to make landfall. But as you can see, when it did this wobble right here, that I wish they would show on this page, but that's really what happened. I was watching it as it happened. She took that big wobble to the right, and then she turned back northeast, and then she wobbled some more, and that's when she made landfall up here close to Perry, Florida. So I wasn't too far off, right? I mean, I tell you guys all the time about the wobble on this. This isn't going to show me St. Mark's, but it's roughly up in here, right? So, from landfall here over to somewhere in this vicinities where St. Mark's would have been. So it would have made landfall. So I'm only off by 33 miles. So, yeah, it did. It did. I was watching the data come in, T-Man, and it did. It actually went Cat 4. So I was keeping an eye on the not only the forecast, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I was also looking at the data coming from the drop zones. And yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning, she went Cat 4 at 130 mile per hour. Low end Cat 4, but if you look over here on the Saffir-Simpson scale, Cat 4 is 130 to 156. Now, after it made that jog at 15 mile per hour, then it sped back up to 18 mile per hour north-northeast. First 17, and then an hour later 18. At that point, they were giving most of the night they were giving 1 o'clock hourly updates every hour. So I'm sitting there watching not only the hunters data, but also watching as the forecast was updating. And daggone, I started getting bored with the Weather Channel because they were on all night too. And so I switched over to Fox, and they were doing a lot better broadcasting. But this one guy, he must have been dyslexic or something, because she was riding the left side of the cone, right? And this guy says it's hanging on the right side of the cone. No, it wasn't. And I'm sitting there watching, my radar and drawing my lines of where it was going to go. And then the Weather Channel, early this morning, before landfall, geez, I lost my train of thought. Oh, they were showing an old cone, which headed more towards Cedar Keys. So it's like, what the hell? Come on, guys. I mean, you guys has got a degree in this stuff, and I don't. So, but they were showing a cam, and I tried my best to find it. There at Cedar Key. Well, Cedar Key got hammered pretty good, but they only got about 7 foot of surge when it was supposed to be 12 to 16. So we get over here on the main screen, and Cedar Key is an island surrounded by marsh, and there's a bridge that you have to get to that island. As you can see here, there's only one road into it. Let all the tiles load up. You got this bridge here to get you out to the island. Then as you come into town, there's a camera set up there and showing this the end of the bridge, right? And it goes into town. There's a bunch of restaurants and bars all down through there. Kelly Williamson and Randy Arnold was there once before, a long time ago. At least Kelly was. Maybe Randy wasn't with him at that point. And he sat in the exact same spot. The funny thing, and it's what kept me watching Fox, was there was a Cadillac sitting there at the beginning of that bridge, or at that part of the bridge anyway. And why that Cadillac was there, I don't know, because they had evacuation orders for Cedar Key. And you're watching all these waves crashing in from the left side. And, every time they show it, you could see not only the waves, but the storm surge itself. was getting higher and higher up to that bridge, and then the waves were blasting higher than that, you know, and coming over and smacking that Cadillac, and it's sitting there shaking. It actually started moving, but then they quit showing it, and it's like, doggone it, I want to see this Cadillac float away, because this dummy left it parked there. And you seen the same video? I could not find that link, and I got the feeling it was either John Humphrey's cam or Mark Sudduth from Hurricane Track, because Mark Sudduth had some equipment clamped onto the railing, and an actual small portable weather station. And so, but they didn't show what happened to the Cadillac. And I was up for hours every time they showed it. The Weather Channel was showing it as well, although they were kind of zoomed in to where you really didn't hardly see the Cadillac there. And then they also was showing, well, Fox was Mark Sudduth from Hurricane Track. He's a guy that I follow. Very smart man. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have on tropical weather, and I like watching him. He's got a YouTube channel. Just search for Hurricane Track on YouTube. But apparently that camera was a paid to see it, you know, pay to play kind of a thing. But what happened was, let's get over here to the main. So she made landfall right around here, a little over 30 miles away from where I said, and here's Cedar Key. So as she came up through here and went something like that, they were only like 50 some miles away from the eye wall. But as the thing got up in here, then all the really strong winds was blasting this thing, right? I mean, it was really blasting Cedar Key. I'm surprised they only got 7 foot inundation over normal tide. But Jim Cantori was there. I think he went live about 5 o'clock this morning, and it was awesome to watch some of his stuff. I trust Jim Cantori. So, hey, thanks for the new follow. There was a new follow earlier. Thank you very much. And I really got a chuckle. Let me scroll back here. I really got a chuckle out of your name. Big Funny Giant. That made me chuckle. I really like that. Thank you very much. And Papa Roachin. That's another good one. You guys come up with some of the darndest names sometimes. So that's what happened early this morning, and I tell you what, I tried my damnedest to stay awake. I made it to about 23 hours straight covering this storm. I did 3 broadcasts yesterday, plus helping Nathan and Nax, and then I helped Nathan from 5 o'clock till close to 8 o'clock. I was, you know, they were giving actual updates every hour, intermediate updates every hour as these aircraft are flying through it, the hurricane hunters. Kudos to them guys. You know, they were, you know, doing it all night long to get the latest information into the model so we could see what was going on with it. And it was really cool that I have the opportunity to actually see the live data from them, and from all their dropsons and the other instruments that they use as they report that back to the National Hurricane Center. I get to see that data. And them boys really enjoy flying into it, tell you the truth. From some of the interviews, I don't think they'd want to use remote, and a lot of times they're too far away to use remote anyway. But I was a little off on my forecast, but not bad. I mean, 33 miles. And who expected the wobble? And I forgot to mention that on my last stream last night. I did mention that there was a possibility it could slow down. It was not forecasted to slow down. If anything, it was forecasted to speed up. And and like I talked about all day yesterday, the continental shelf gets shallower and shallower as you get closer to shore, so the warm waters don't get to go too deep and then start pulling up cooler waters. Well, normally that would have killed it or really held it back from getting strong. And the reason why that it kept getting stronger, it was moving so fast. So by the time it was starting to suck up cooler waters, it was already over warmer waters because it was moving forward so fast. And when I seen it slow down 3 miles per hour, it's like, ruh-roh, this, you know, what's going to happen here? But it didn't slow down enough to make the storm suck up a bunch of cooler waters, what they call upwelling. And it was still moving forward enough to maintain itself and get stronger. And I tell you what, that eye was a needle point for hours. That was a sign of rapid intensification. And just to give you an example, during all of that wee hours of the morning, I measured the eye over on Franklin, which has been steadily getting bigger because it's getting weaker, and it was 26 miles across the eye. On the other hand, Idalia, her eye was only 10 miles across. I don't think I've ever seen one with 10 mile across the eye. Usually they're 20 or better, depending on how strong they are. So let me grab the screenshot that I did. Now forget this crap here at the beginning. I got to do something here. So over here on the main, this was a little time lapse of my screen. And one thing that I want to point out on this, notice where the stronger storms are around the eye. All night long, those got stronger over on that northwest side and the west side of it. And notice the lack of storms here. Now, earlier it was the opposite. Everything was real strong over here on the east side of it as it was coming up. But keep an eye on that right there. And this is where it started to go through an eye wall replacement. The eye wall was weakening. This, and let me zoom back in here. Watch how this outer circulation starts getting wrapped into it. This view is GR Earth. This, oh, Nax, you know better than ask me that. I didn't see who it was at first. So, anyway, we'll play this ahead a little bit, and then I zoom in on it. But you can start to see how she was going through an eye wall replacement. Nax is being a funny man today. I really enjoyed going back into history on Zelho and listening to some of his comments. So I'm going to zoom in here. Now it's going to flicker while it reloads the tiles up, all the images. But you can tell she's going through an eye wall replacement right there, especially at the tail end. You know, she looked pretty good. A lot of times those strong storms on the northwest and west side were trying to wrap all the way around, but they never did. So let me get this up here and stop it. And right here, this is the part that I'm talking about. Here's the eye, right? But then watch how this starts wrapping into it, and it was actually trying to replace the inner eye at that point was trying to weaken. Well, no. Well, there might have been a little bit of dry air incursion, but I don't think so, Nax. You guys were sleeping while I was doing this stuff. At least you might have been sleeping. I don't know. But it was trying to go through that eye wall replacement, and I didn't follow this up all the way. But right before landfall, it did try to rebuild an inner eye. So it was really cool to see an eye that doggone tight. And I wasn't the only one to measure it across. The Weather Channel did, Fox Weather did, and they got the same thing that I seen, that it was 10 miles wide at one point. It just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that is a sign of intensification. So then at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's when they found 142 mile per hour winds at about 8,000 feet, and that's when they made it Cat 4. The drop zone showed it was at least 130 miles per hour winds down near the surface. Which, whenever they find those really strong winds that high up, you can take about 10% off of that, and that's what the surface winds is most likely to be. And that proved out pretty good. I do want to say that, and I said this last night, I'm really tickled how the models ended up working with this one. These can be very tough when they come out of the Western Caribbean and come up through the Gulf, and especially this fast. The models, at first, you didn't have any data to put in the models, really. Except for satellite information. And then once it got to tropical storm status, then they started sending the hurricane hunters into it, started getting data. But look how short of a time period they had to gather information and keep the forecast updated. So, by the way, this thing made history. The first time that particular area actually had this strong of a storm. The last storm that kind of went up through there was Hermine. Nathan was on that. It did really hurt Cedar Key. They still got some places in Cedar Key Island that are still rebuilding from Hermine. Yeah, Nats fan. I was following this before the GFS even showed it, and which is weird. Usually the GFS shows something and over exaggerates it first, and then the other models start finding it. But this time the Euro was right there on the money, man. And then the Canadian models picked it up, and then all of a sudden, once the GFS got some actual data into it, it's like, hey, I want to join the party too. So let's take a look at, and I got to refresh this page over on Monitor 6. Oh God, I hate doing this. Let's go ahead and get over on Monitor 6. This is a page I like to use sometimes where I can show the fronts. And let's turn on the wind stream. So this thing is still affecting Florida, south of Tampa. Look at this band down here, going right across south of Tampa. And you can see how the winds, the closer it gets to Idalia, how the winds are, really picking up speed. So you got all of this inflow into the shore there in South Carolina and North Carolina. So there's going to be some inundation and some flooding. There's still some storm surge. The waves aren't near as big as what they was in Florida, but and look how far north this goes. Again, I seen some storms up here in the far southeast Virginia, up around Virginia Beach. So it's still got a chance to let's get over here on the main screen. You still got a chance for tornadoes. There's actually an enhanced risk there along the coast. And there is a 10% tornado risk up and down through here. And there's been multiple tornado warnings, but so far I've only seen one TOR, one actually confirmed. So this all goes up to the Outer Banks. And this is the current radar on it. This thing will continue to spread some of these outer bands up, but as this thing weakens, I think the which is supposed to get up, I think, close to Myrtle Beach and then start going out to sea. We're still going to have coastal flooding and some of these outer bands, but I think as it drops down and starts getting weaker and weaker as days goes by, that the threat for tornadoes will go down. I think. That's my opinion, folks. I want to show you a video. Now, this is wild. This was in Goose Creek, which I believe is in Georgia. Let me grab the right one here. Look at that car. That was from a small, quick tornado. Look how it kind of stood for a split second on its front bumper. And then it comes down on that other car. Yeah, I hope they were wearing seat belts. But that was from one of the quick spin-up tornadoes. You don't see the funnel. It just happened so fast and it was so small, but it was strong enough to pick that car up. Ain't that crazy? And then, what's a good hurricane, since I don't have none of Nathan's video yet? A good old Reed. Now this is my channel. I can show who I want to show. So, but he's actually out here on Cedar Key, right? So it was one of these buildings on the other side that Jim Cantori was actually in. So he was next to Jim Cantori. But look at this incoming. All right, take that back. He's on the other side. He's there at the bridge. He's actually on the bridge. So Cantori was a little bit further in town. I haven't watched this video yet. Jim Cantori, they got to stay at a place that I believe belonged to University of Florida. This is before the full storm surge. Hey, Sharon. Hey, Sharon, did you get much down there? Because there was parts of southern Florida that had damage. Okay, that's enough for Reed. He's going to start screaming here in a minute, and I don't want to listen to him. No, it damaged the first floor, but I don't think that was a hotel. Forecast. And I tell you what, guys, I'm going to be watching. Here's Idalia. Oh, Franklin's over here just chilling as a cat too. And here she goes out to sea. Let's pick another region. Let's go North Atlantic. So, and we got some areas down here now we're going to have to watch. Now, this one we don't. This is going northwest, and forget it. Here's that high pressure ridge that's always out in the Atlantic. But watch the path of Idalia. This is the GFS, which yesterday showed it curling back to the south and then coming back into the east coast of Florida. That was baloney. And I don't even think the GFS is right here. We'll take a look at the Euro at that same time. Well, now the latest Euro showing her right there. But the 12Z didn't. This is the 18Z run. But there's another trough. If you look, let me try to zoom into this. Look at these black lines are dipping down. up to this low pressure system up here. That trough is going to grab her and pull her away. Oh, wait a minute. The 18Z doesn't go out far enough yet. I don't think it's done. Let's go back to the 12Z run. Let's get this looking better. So this is the Euro at the 12Z run. And this is pretty much what I think is going to happen. I haven't heard any information out of Bermuda yet, but remember earlier I said that Idalia is going to stay out here, and there was 2 highs. There's one, and here's another one, which this one is trying to spin around that way and kick her down. But this one, it's going to sit there and drag it up. Okay. And there she goes. Now, could it hit up here at Halifax, Nova Scotia? Too far out to tell. This is clear out September 9th. So, but interesting thing is this stuff down here at the bottom. Let me back this up. Notice how they're starting to move more westward. The last several days, the ones coming off of Africa have been going northwest right into that Saharan dust. These are trying more and more, and the main development region's got all this moisture starting to fill in on the monsoonal trough. And we're coming up to our peak here in a couple of weeks, folks. So we got to keep an eye on these ones down here. Now, this, again, goes out to Saturday, September 9th. I'm not going to show you the GFS because I don't trust it that far out anyway. But this is going to start coming at us. So we can't let our guard down. I think it's September 15th or 16th. I think it's the 16th is our peak of the hurricane season. So we're getting close to the peak, and we got those down there that's going to be coming. And we'll have to wait and see. It's too far out to forecast anything past 7 days, according to the Hurricane Center. As far as they go, they don't want to go out any further. And I totally agree with them. When you start getting out 10 days, it gets kind of cluttered, and you never know what's going to happen that far out. Just like with Idalia this morning, you know, I did not expect it to wobble as much as it did when it slowed down. I knew it wasn't forecasted to slow down, but I always have that feeling, and I even mentioned it to Nathan that it could slow down, and I mentioned it to you all, and it did. But I was not expecting that sharp northeast turn at 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew it would wobble as it slowed down, but I didn't think it would make that much of a turn, but she did. And just like I said earlier today, Mother Nature reminds me of my ex-wife. She loved to try to prove me wrong and argue with me. So, Mother Nature almost beat me up, but I was only 33 miles off on landfall, so only 33 miles. I think that's pretty good for sitting here in southwest Ohio, right? So, but actually the truth is none of the models, you know, was forecasting for it to slow down and forecasting that much of a wobble. So, they had it steadily speeding up. So she did make Cat 4. She did go back down to Cat 3 just right before landfall when it was going through that eye wall replacement. And that typically happens during an eye wall replacement, is it will struggle at first while it's trying to bring the outer wall in, and you tighten it up. It'll actually weaken a little bit, and it did. I think it only dropped just 1 or 2 mile per hour. 130 was barely a Cat 4. So it was a real strong Cat 3. You might as well say Cat 3 plus, a Cat 3 2.0, whatever you want to call it, a Cat 3.9. It doesn't matter if you were in that area, which I guess Nathan got walloped by that western part of the eye wall, which I told him early this morning that had been which was odd because usually the strongest storms in the eye wall is over on the northeast side or the east side. But as I showed you earlier, it was more over on that west side and northwest side. And so he went to Madison, east of Tallahassee, and before I fell asleep, I told him, as far as I knew, as far as I could tell, that part of the eye wall was headed toward him, and I guess it did. Look forward to the video coming out if you didn't see it early this morning. He's going to post the VOD when he gets it edited. Major trees knocked down. Nax was having a thrill with it this morning. I ain't going to play the Zello from this morning, but I went back and listened to it. It was funny after I woke up. I really felt bad because I fell asleep, but I know one time I kind of woke up and I heard Nax and Desert talking to Nathan, so I knew they was there to help him if needed. But I still felt bad that I couldn't stay awake. I used to be able here just a few years ago, be able to sit up all night for 3 days in a row and cover something like this. And I would do all night streams and stuff. And I'm getting too old. I'm getting too old. I couldn't make, I made 23 hours straight. I couldn't make the 24th hour. Yeah, you're right, Sharon. So, I don't know who all that's been watching my stream lives in Florida. I can't remember everybody. Apparently some of you made it through okay. I've only heard of one death, but I know there's probably more. He slept till 8:15. I fell asleep about 7:30. I was trying to stay awake for that 8 o'clock update. How often do they replace the eye wall? That depends on the hurricane and how strong it is and where it's at. Franklin actually went through several eye wall replacements on its way up to 150 mile per hour Cat 4. That was the strongest that I seen Franklin as I was reporting on it. Real strong Cat 4. I mean, it was close to a Cat 5, but it was out to sea and it was gorgeous. The satellite views on it was just gorgeous. And other than maritime lanes, it didn't affect nobody except for down at the DR, which it caused a lot of flooding down in Dominican Republic, and which is just west of Puerto Rico. But it wasn't a hurricane at that point. And it was like a tropical storm at that point. So they didn't get hammered like Puerto Rico did with Maria a while back. So, any questions? South Carolina, North Carolina, and most likely up into Virginia is going to be a lot of rain overnight. Oh yeah, the space station view, that's always spectacular. I love it when they fly over a hurricane or a cyclone, wherever they're flying over a tropical system. It's just really awesome. So before I go, I need to point out over here on monitor 6 the flash flooding potential over the next 3 days. It don't quite go up to Norfolk, Virginia. Let me zoom in on this. But it does cover Hatteras and the Outer Banks. Really large potential in this red area. I don't know if the space station was doing analysis or not. We get a lot of analysis from our GOES satellites. So any of this colored area has still got potential flooding over the next 3 days. The total rainfall potential now, and this has changed. Oops, I did the wrong one. Let me zoom in on it here. This orange area is 6 to 10. There's some red areas, but some of it's out to sea. But up there around Hatteras and that could see more than 10 inches of rainfall. Earlier, there was a larger area of 6 to 10 down in, or heavier than 6 to 10 down in here. Oh, them frogs were nuts, man. They were louder than I've ever heard on Nathan's stream when he goes down there. One confirmed so far. That's what I heard too, Sharon. I don't know how many tornado reports there was. Not all of them made landfall. I think there might have been 3, but 2 of those wasn't confirmed in Florida last night, and I've only seen 1 today. Yeah, 1010. It did make Cat 4 at 2 o'clock in the morning. It went Cat 4 at 130 mile per hour winds and wobbled. And there's still some rainfall potentials down in Florida. You know, like I showed you, there's been some storms down here over here on the main screen. And this is all part of Idalia. This is all part of Idalia. That's a tail that's actually coming down. Let's go back. Look at. Yeah, it won't let me go back far enough for the satellite view. I don't think. Let me try that. Yep, there it is. You can see Idalia, which is up here at this point. This is 3 hours ago. It's got this tail coming down through here. So all the storms that's in Florida right now, that's all part of Idalia. That's one of the outer bands reaching down to the southwest. 39 tornado warnings. Yeah, there was a bunch of them. Especially, there was several hours, and I even mentioned this in the desert late last night. That it was amazing. It went hours and hours and hours with no tornado warnings, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 they just start falling, you know, on the map like lightning, dropping all kinds of tornado warnings overnight with some of the outer bands. And there's been a bunch of them since I've been away up in the Georgia, Carolinas. There's been a lot of floodings right now. I've got several flash flood warnings in South Carolina. There was some over in Georgia earlier. I only seen 1 Tor R in Florida all day yesterday. And 1 today there in North Carolina. The only Tor R tornado reported on the ground, but the news did say that in Florida there was some tornado warnings that supposedly there was confirmed touchdown, although I never seen it from the National Weather Service. Hey, Knitter Girl, you just not getting here? I'm about done. So I don't have anything else to show you. I have been keeping track on the tides, by the way, which I should have mentioned this earlier. This is a buoy at Folly Island, which is right close to Charleston, at 8:16 Eastern Time. 45 minutes ago. Daggone it. High tide was 6.72 feet. And if you got visibility to the moon, I think our peak is coming up here in about 25 minutes. I think is what they said for the supermoon. I'm not seeing it right now on my cameras. But yeah, at 8:16 there was high tide near Charleston of 6.72 feet. Plus you got all the storm surge still happening with that wraparound flow, just like I talked about yesterday, we was going to have this issue of flooding up the coast there in Georgia and the Carolinas and into Virginia somewhat. I think it's a little bit weaker up there as far as storm surge, but that's still happening right now. So along the coast and low-lying areas and rivers, it's still going to flood, especially with all this rain. It's the same deal that we had with Florida yesterday and this morning, that you got two types of flooding happening. You got storm surge that's pushing inland, and then you got all the rain coming down, and it ain't got nowhere to go. It wants to drain out to sea, but the storm surge is keeping the fresh water pushed inland. So that's like a double whammy on flooding, and that's going to happen along the coast of the Carolinas right now. So we still got that storm surge pushing into the coast, and all that rain that's up here that's falling right now, and it ain't got nowhere to drain. It ain't got no, and Charleston's real bad about that. I remember helping Kelly Williamson a long time ago down there in Charleston, where he got stuck for the night. So 9:36. That's Pacific. It's Pacific time, and we're 3 hours. We're 3 hours different from Pacific. You sure that's not East Coast or Eastern? I thought they said it was going to be like 9:30 something our time. So anyway, folks, that's all I've got for tonight. No, Pacific Coast time is 3 hours behind us. You got Central Time 1 hour, Mountain Time 2 hours, and Pacific Time is 3 hours. So I really got that sunk into my head because I watched San Diego webcam and they're 3 hours behind me. So 12:36 Southpaw is peak. Backwards thinking. We get like that when we get older, don't we, Sharon? So anyway, folks, thank you very much. Any direct donations to my PayPal or my streamlabs.com/BGreatWX is greatly appreciated. Any subs, direct donations, bits, greatly appreciated. I will start a subathon next month. It's September, coming up. And by the way, before I go, it still looks like I'm going to make it Monday to the U.S. National Drag Races. If I've got data and if I can, I'm going to try to live stream a little bit from there. And we'll see how that goes. I got me a wheelchair coming because I can't walk that much, and you end up walking miles during the whole day to get around that place multiple times. So I'm not going to see the Wolves Saturday. Sean ends up, he's mandatory, he's got to work. It's going to be too hot anyway, even though they got 10% off for Labor Day weekend. But I'm not going to go this weekend. I'm going to wait till it cools off a little bit. So now we're at the tail end. I'm going to be working on the laser this weekend, or the rest of this week. So I don't know if I'm going to do a stream tomorrow night or not. I might at 8 o'clock. We'll have to wait and see. I need some rest. Idalia wore me out. It wore me out. Daggone gal. So, and I ain't gonna go there. So anyway, peace. Pop that top for me. I'll catch you on the next broadcast. Stay safe. Love y'all.